Hi everyone, welcome to Talk is Cheap. I'm your girl, Miss Carrie Baby, here tonight, and yes, I am in a new location. I share to my guests where I am, but yes, you guys, you wonderful people. I'm in downtown Dallas, working hard today, but still have time for my podcast. Like I always say, it's very therapeutic for me to talk to my guests and for them to support me and me to support them as well. And we're glad to have you guys here tonight. And I am also here with my special guest, Mr. Paul Forchione. Yes, shouts out to California, Los Angeles. Hey, Paul, how's it going?
Hey, Kara, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I love being live. It's fun. It's invigorating.
Yes. I'm glad to have you as well. So, Paul, just introduce yourself to our listeners.
My name's Paul Forchione, and I am a mindset coach that helps people rewrite their stories so they can take control of their lives, because that's what I had to do in my life.
Yes, great. And we want to hear some more about that later, but just going in first, and how I always like to do, you guys, I like to talk about something factual and know that mental health awareness and bring everybody aware and up to par on everything that me and Paul will be discussing tonight. So we're going to focus in on cerebral palsy. So you guys have probably heard about cerebral palsy, which is a permanent movement disorder that appears in early childhood. And some of these signs and symptoms among people happen over time, and from when they're born with it, and then it can happen through their entire life as well. So some of those signs and symptoms are stiff muscles, they're weak muscles, or tumors that happens and sometimes in their bodies as well that can form from those muscles not operating or coordinating correctly. Their vision, their hearing, swallowing, and speaking. So that's cerebral palsy. And then there's also different types of cerebral palsy. Me and Paul were just talking about this as well, as he has been diagnosed with it. We didn't know that there were different types and different kinds that can happen in babies and adults and children. There's different stages of cerebral palsy that you go through, or several different types that can affect your life as well. So just a few of those types are spastic cerebral palsy, authoritoid, y'all work with me here on these words, and ataxic cerebral palsy. And then there can be different mixtures of cerebral palsy, and it can affect in different parts of the body. And you can also have mobility limitations with cerebral palsy. So, Paul, what comments do you have about cerebral palsy, and how has it affected you in your life?
Well, my definition of cerebral palsy, it happens at birth, and it's lack of oxygen to the brain at labor. And as a result of this lack of oxygen to the brain in labor, it affects one side of the body, and it could be so severe it could leave you paralyzed. In my case, when I was born, I wasn't moving the right side of my body very much. So my mom was very concerned on what was going on. So she took me to the doctors to get the diagnosis of what the deal was. And through the testing, I was tested that I had cerebral palsy. And at the time, the doctors thought it was so severe that they thought I would never be able to walk, that I would be kind of paralyzed on that right side, and I wouldn't have enough mobility to walk. And it would be a good idea coming up in age that I get used to being in a wheelchair, because that was going to be my life in a wheelchair. Well, thank goodness for a great mom. She just didn't go with that diagnosis. She got a second, third, fourth, fifth, finally found a physician that was willing to help me. And due to the work of my physician, I was able to walk at 3. don't really remember that, but obviously that's huge when other doctors thought I would never, ever be able to walk. But
Yeah.
I do remember being put into soccer around 5 or 6. And at the time, I could only run about I'd say 25 to 50 yards, and I'd have to stop because the pain in my leg would just be too much, and I couldn't do any further. And I remember saying to my mom, I don't want to play soccer anymore. I'm basically just standing there while everybody's running around the soccer field and I can't barely move. I don't want to play soccer. This is ridiculous. And my mom telling me, if you don't want to play soccer anymore, that's fine, but we have to honor our commitments. So you need to finish out the soccer season. And after the soccer season's over, you don't have to play soccer anymore. So that's what happened. I finished out the soccer season, and I'm 40 now, and I've never played soccer since my life.
Wow.
Yeah. But I got a break, a real big break, when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I got surgery on my right foot to tighten up the tendon, to give me a little bit more spring in my step. And I didn't test it out yet, but I switched schools around that time. And I remember my first day of PE, physical education. We did our stretches, and the teacher says, okay, run a lap. And I'm thinking to myself, here we go again.
Wow.
I'm going to run this lap, and I'm going to stop. And these kids are going to see that I can only run 25 to 50 yards, and they're going to start making fun of me because that's all I can do. But because of my surgery, it was different. I was able to go past that point where I normally have to stop. And I remember saying to myself while I was running, I was like, come on, Paul, you got this, bud. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And I finished the lap with the other kids. On the outside, I kept it cool. But on the inside, I was like, yes, yes, yes. It was the first time in my life that I just fit in with the other kids. I didn't stand out. It was huge for me. It was a big feat. And because of the surgery, things got easier for me, but I would not consider them easy. I switched schools again in junior high, middle school, whatever you want to call it now. But it was around 13 years old. And as you know, that's just a tough age. People, we're all becoming teenagers. Different hormones are happening. And there's no filter, right? Anything in their head, they're going to blurt out. There's no, they just say it. It's just hard being a new kid, period, going into that age. But I was a new kid with a disability because I still kind of walk with a limp, and I still hold my right arm a little bit differently. So I was a new kid, and I had a little bit of a disability. So when I got in there, I was not welcomed with open arms. I was bullied, teased quite a bit. And on top of this, my mom wanted me to go to a Catholic high school. So I had to take an assessment test to see where I was at academically. I must have bombed that test, because when I met with the principal and I met with my mom, they said that they're going to put me at the lowest level possible. And the principal says, I don't expect much from him. He doesn't seem like he's college material. After one test, this principal says this to me.
Wow.
So I'm feeling defeated. I'm bullied in school. I get this information that the principal already thinks that I'm not smart enough to go to college. I'm crying myself to sleep every night going, why me? Why do I have to be different? Why can't I just fit in with the other kids? And I don't know what really came over me, Carrie, but I remember midway through 8th grade, I was just sick of feeling sad and angry all the time, because I knew deep down those weren't my go-to emotions. But because of the environment I was in, those were the two emotions that was coming up most frequently. And at the time, I loved baseball. So I thought to myself, what if I set a goal for myself to distract me from these feelings of sadness and anger? And I thought, well, what if I set a goal to make my varsity baseball team in high school? So I said, okay, let's try this. So I played fall ball, winter ball, spring ball. And if I wasn't doing that, I was throwing a tennis ball against the wall, and I was practicing constantly. And the great thing about this goal that I set for myself, and I know this now, at the time I really didn't know this, but I know now what was going on. I was sending a different energy out to these kids. I started to gain more confidence in myself. I had my shoulders back, my head up. And as a result of me sending out this different energy, they were sending a different energy towards me, meaning instead of bullying and teasing me, they started rooting for me. So my high school career was much different than my junior high, all because of the energy shift that I decided to have and send out to these other kids. And I'm happy to say, Carrie, I was able to make my varsity baseball team as a junior and a senior.
That's great.
And I graduated high school, and I started to really think about what that principal said to me years earlier about not being college material. And because in high school, I just pretty much mailed it in. I just did enough to stay eligible to play baseball because I thought to myself, what's the point of trying any harder? I'm not college material. Why waste my time? Just do enough
Mm,
to stay by. But I thought, well, geez, I just set this goal. Somebody with cerebral palsy making a varsity baseball team, I was able to do that. And I thought, well, why not I set another goal for myself and be college material?
yeah.
So I enrolled into a junior college because that was the only place that would accept me. And I got myself a tutor. I went to the math lab. I did everything necessary to increase that GPA, and I was able to increase it high enough to transfer to a 4-year university where I was able to graduate. And I still wanted to go back to that principal and say, "See, you
Wow.
were wrong. You were."
Yeah.
I was college material, but in the end, I should thank her for giving me the motivation to go after
Yeah.
school as hard as I did, because I don't know if she would have said that to me. I don't know if I would have hit the books as hard as I did in college because of what she said to me. So, and then maybe I should thank her for giving me that motivation. So
Wow.
now I graduated college. I have no life experience. I'm 22, 23 years old. I have no idea what the heck I want to do with myself. So I had a family friend who was a CEO of a small bank, and he said, "Why don't you try becoming a mortgage loan officer? I'll hire you." And I said, "I'm not doing anything else. Let's give it a shot. Let's give it a go." So I get hired on, and people are shunning me. They don't want to talk to me. It was weird. I felt like I was back in junior high. I was sitting alone at
Mm,
lunch, and the reason why they didn't want to talk to me is because they knew I got the job because I knew the CEO, and it wasn't because of the talents I had. It was the name that I had.
wow.
So what they were going to do, their plan was they were going to chew me up and spit me out because I wasn't good enough to be there because I didn't have the talents, because I was a rookie, and I got, again, like I said, I got the job because I knew the CEO of the company.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself about the time that I went after that baseball goal, and I go, what attributes can I use doing this goal? So I thought, well, in that baseball goal, I had to put my head down, work extremely hard, have a great attitude. And I thought, well, that's transferable. So I put my head down. I worked extremely hard. I had a positive attitude. When anybody needed something, I got it done in a timely manner. I never complained about the workload. And from afar, because they didn't want to talk to me, I was observing what the top loan officers did on a daily basis. And I remember my first day feeling like I was ready to go out in the field and get loans. The CEO of the company saw me and goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "Well, I'm going to go out and get some loans." He's like, no, you're not ready yet. We got to get you more training. You're not there yet. I'm like, no, I got this. And I went out on the field, and I got to tell you, I fell on my face quite a bit for several months. I didn't know what I really wasn't ready, but I just wanted to go for it. And, I was getting beat up by the clients. I just really was really green at the time. I just didn't know what I was doing. But slowly but surely, I started to understand the value I could add to these clients. And once I started doing that, then I started to bring in loans. And 2 years later, I became a top producer. And a lot of the people that didn't want to talk to me when I first got there are now coming to me for questions on how I was able to bring in so many loans at a short period of time. So it was a great turn of events for me. And for many, many years, I really enjoyed the mortgage industry. And then 2008, 2009 hit, and the economy just tanked.
Wow.
Was laid off a few times for different banks. Banks were gone. They didn't exist anymore. So it was really tough. And I was really kind of losing the luster of the industry. And I remember one of my last banking jobs, they brought in this motivational speaker to talk to us. And the guy blew me away. The guy was awesome.
That's great.
And at the end, I went up to him to talk to him, to tell him how great of a job he did. And he was gracious. He allowed me to pick his brain. And he said he started as a life coach. I'm like, life coach? What the heck is that? And he explained to me what a life coach did. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's what I want to do. Maybe I want to do that. So I started to get my coaching certificate together, and I started to put it out there that I wanted to be a coach. And, people weren't really taking me seriously. And they were like, "Okay, coach, just go out and get loans, bud. Keep getting loans, whatever." And then things started to get serious. I got my website up. I got my licensing. And the legal team of the bank that I was working at the time got wind of my side job. And they're like, "This could be a conflict of interest." So they reviewed it. And then they came back with this 5-page report of what I could and could not say. And I looked at that report. I'm like, oh, man, I'm not going to be able to make traction doing both coaching in the mortgage industry. So I'm thinking, well, if I really want to do this coaching thing, I'm really going to have to make it work. So what I did was I paid off all my debts. I changed all my spending habits, because when you do a new business, you're not going to make money for quite a while. So you gotta be lean. You gotta be real lean. So I got all that in order. It took me about a year to do that, and then I quit the mortgage industry, and they were shocked that I quit, because I just made President's Club, and they're like, "What are you doing, dude? You're a loan officer, you're not a coach. What's this coaching thing?"
Wow.
And they're like, "You're going to be back. You're going to be back. This is not going to work out for you." I'm like, "Okay." So for the first few years of me doing the coaching, I wasn't making any traction. I started doubting myself, maybe thinking maybe I wasn't cut out for this.
Yeah.
Then I thought to myself, how do I expect these clients to open up to me if I'm not opening to them, if I'm not being vulnerable to them? Because the story I told you, Carrie, about me having cerebral palsy, I didn't want to tell anybody that story, because all through my childhood, all I wanted to do was fit in. I didn't want any special treatment. I just wanted to be treated like any other kid. So anytime people brought up that I had cerebral palsy, or brought up that I was limping, I would get emotional about it. I would almost be in tears, because I didn't want to talk about it. And I thought to myself, I'm going to have to own this story, because that's the only way people are going to want to open up to me, is that they know my backstory and why I want to become a coach and why am I doing this. And once I started opening up about me having cerebral palsy, people started coming to me and goes, "You know what? I have this problem that I'm working on, so I can relate to you. I think you could help me." And because of that, I started to pick up clients, because they were like, "Okay, I get where this person's coming from." And I started my own podcast, and I'm just keeping it going. And now I'm talking with you and having a great time as a coach.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, Paul, that is great. That's amazing. And your story is also amazing as well, because like you said, a lot of times, I'm going to hit on a few things here. A lot of times children do listen to the stigmas that's put in their head, and society do, they also grow up in a harsh society as well. We know that we were younger, and kids are harsh, but you also got to look at the surroundings and the way that the generations have changed and how things were going during that time as well. And then also I want to touch on, like Paul said here, never put limitations on yourself. Never say, "Oh, well, they don't think I'm good enough, so now I'm not going to think that I'm good enough, or I'm not going to try hard." And he turned it around. Make yourself some goals. A lot of times I feel like people get too tied up upon, like I said, what people say or what they think, or even how they feel about themselves. And they have this "I can't do it," or "I'm not going to try," or "I'm not good enough" mentality, when we have to change those things. And that's a lot of times, like we said, with cerebral palsy or any other disability or mental health illness, you can do it. You do matter to someone. And so with that being said, Paul, was there any time that with your with having cerebral palsy and people saying that you couldn't do anything, did those stigmas weigh you down, or did you feel like you had to outdo the what you were hearing, or try harder?
Well, I got to tell you, Carrie, I'm a human being, and the things that the kids were saying to me really, really did hurt. And there was times where I was doubting myself that I wouldn't amount to anything, because I just thought that I was dealt a bad hand, and that's the way it goes, and I'm really not going to make a difference. But I had a great mom who, kind of was my first life coach, to tell me that, what, you have limitations, but don't focus on the limitations. Focus on all the stuff that you can do, and once you focus on what you can do, then find out what your passion is out of what you can do and go for it. And that's been my mantra, all through my life. So yeah, I mean, everybody has those limited beliefs. We're all human beings, and every time we do have negative things that happen on our head, but we got to be aware that they're just thoughts. They're not reality. We can change our thoughts and change our reality.
Yes, and that's great. And like I said, we talked previously how most of our motivational speakers or life coaches or fellow podcasters know how to roll with the flow. So, just thinking about your relationship with your mom, we all, I know I have a great mom, and I hope a lot of other people do as well. So with you saying, that you have a great mom, what are some things that your mom noticed to say, I got to get my son some help? Or that there was something different with you when you were, born up until you were 3 years old that you could walk.
At the time when I was born an infant, I wasn't moving the right side of my body very much.
Mm,
And moms are very observant of their
yeah.
children. They are very observant, and it's a sixth sense. So she just
Mhm.
knew something wasn't right about me. And thank goodness the alarm bells went off in her head, and
Yeah.
she got me help as soon as possible. And because
Okay.
of her fast acting and what she did for me, I'm able to have an active life. I'm able to run a marathon. I'm able to do a lot of things um, that a lot of doctors thought I would never be able to do. And I owe a lot of that to my mom because she was my voice. I didn't have a voice as an infant. I couldn't say, no, doctor, I am going to walk. I am going to run. My mom had to say that for me.
Mm-hmm.
She fought for me. And
That's great.
I can't say enough great things about her because I'm the person I am because of her.
Yeah, that's great. So, with getting help and everything for cerebral palsy, how long do you know about how long you were in physical therapy? And then just going into now, how is your life being affected by it now?
So, yeah, so the first 10 years of my life, I was going to physical therapy 5 days a week. And
Wow.
it would be anywhere from swimming to stretch bands, all really focused on the right side of my body, which was affected by the cerebral palsy.
Oh,
So yeah, it was constant movements because if you don't use it, you lose it. So
yeah.
because of the intense physical therapy that I did for the first 10 years of my life, I was able to have movement on the right side of my body, because if I didn't do that, I probably would be crippled on the right side. So it was just intense physical therapy for 10 years. Just keep doing it, keep moving it,
Wow.
keep going. As far as affecting me today, I still kind of walk with a little bit of a limp. I
Okay.
still hold my right arm a little bit differently than other people. But I type a little bit slower than other people. But other than that, I mean, I ran a marathon. I've done a lot of stuff.
Wow. That's great.
So I don't let the limitation stop me from what I want to go after.
Great. That's great. And like Paul is saying, you guys, just don't let anything hold you back. We can overcome most things, are not permanent, or it can be something that changes as long as you try and believe in yourself as well. And like I said, this is great. And so just moving forward, so how did you overcome your cerebral palsy with different sports you've done? So just going to some of those things, you just hit on a few of them, that you ran a marathon. Um, what other great accomplishments have you done, and how did you work yourself up to do these things?
It's all about mindset, Carrie. It's how you carry yourself as a person. And
Right.
it starts with self-love. First off, you got to love yourself, and you can't love yourself or who you were in the past, and you can't love yourself on who you want to be in the future. You got to love yourself right now, warts and all. That's where it starts. Loving yourself and giving yourself grace and looking in that mirror and saying, I'm worthy of love and I'm worthy of giving love.
Yeah.
I think it starts right there. And once you start to really believe in yourself wholeheartedly, not just going through the motions, but right there in the gut, believe in yourself. Then you can start taking on the tasks that you want to go after, whatever it is, whether it's in sports or in business or in dance or whatever, getting married, having kids, whatever it is. It all starts with that self-love that you need to give to yourself, because that's extremely important. And that was my start. I before I was going after baseball, I was lacking that self-love. And because of going after baseball, going after that goal, I started to get confidence in myself. And when I started to get confidence in myself, I started putting out a different energy. And because people picked up that, you know what, he really has confidence in himself. I mean, they didn't say that, but that's what that's the energy I was putting out. And because of that different energy it was putting out, they were putting a different energy towards me. And I think that's extremely important with everybody.
Yes.
Everybody has things they don't like about themselves. Oh, well, there's so much you can do with your life. There's so many things. You have some sort of special talent. Find out whatever that special talent is. And once you find out what that special talent is, work on it so that you're good at it and share it with the world to see.
Yes. Yeah. And you totally hit on something, Paul. Don't, if you bring out negative energy and you're always thinking about negative things, then most likely negative things will come your way or happen to you. But once you fill yourself with positive energy and positivity, like you said, people will gravitate towards something that's positive and see, I got to pay attention to this guy or this girl because she's really leaving her mark here. She's really making a difference and making a change, because this was told, like you said, it's just amazing to me because this was told that these are some of the things you would never do when you were a baby. They already counted you out, opted you out of everything. He's not going to do this. And like you said, you had your mother there that pushed you, that guided you and seek that help for her son. And look at you now, 40 years old. That, like you said, done ran marathons, that did things that's great. And I think that's something within itself that, my listeners should hear, or the world should hear about just trying hard and not giving up on yourself. And like you said, you hit on something else, having that confidence. I feel like a lot of times when people do have a disability or mental illness, or just us, a lot of regular people as well that are, born naturally, fall into depression or have anxiety about a lot of different things. And they don't have that confidence or that self-love or even taking out the time for self-care to find something, like you said, their passion for something that they like to do all the time, or even try hard. Like, you're just not here on this earth to go to work and, oh, this is it, this is life. Like, no, you should want to start a family. You should want to get that job that you love so much. I'm really big on traveling now. It's a lot of things that could be going on. And so, Paul, like, do you have a family, or do you feel like that has held you back, or do you have a family?
No. I'm not married right now. But who knows what the future holds for me on that realm. I'm definitely open to it. I've had great relationships with girls, and unfortunately things didn't work out for me in that realm so far. But the future's bright, and something good will come about of it.
Yes.
Want to touch on something that you said that resonated with me about you focus on what you want to focus on, and I think that's huge. So what I tell my clients to do is when they wake up in the morning, before they do whatever their morning routine is, think of something that they're grateful for, something that's going well in their life right there. Focus in on that, because if you do that, it will start your day off on the right foot. And like you said, you'll focus in on positive things. Like, you could get something on your phone that says "up, free coffee." The day keeps getting better and better and better.
Yes.
Because you can go the opposite way, right? You can be driving to work and you get a flat tire and you go, just my luck, this would happen to me. Bad things do happen to me. I would get a flat tire. And I would say to that individual, bad things happen to you because you're looking for the bad things. How often do you buy a car and all of a sudden you see that car all over the road, that same car, and you didn't see it before, but now you see it all over the place.
You're noticing it. Yep.
You're noticing it because your mind's looking for it. And the same thing with having a positive and negative attitude. Same thing. You notice what you're looking for. And if you're looking for something positive things are going to happen. If you're looking for negative things are going to happen. So I choose, and my clients choose, to look at things in a positive way, because good things happen that way.
Yes. And like you said, a lot of things should always be handled positive. And I just, like we were talking previously before that about, I asked you about the, marriage and stuff. And that, that's confidence across the board as well. So find someone that, loves you regardless of your flaws, regardless of things that's going on. And you don't let those flaws hinder your relationship as well. And I like to ask that because a lot of times within mental health or having a, mobile disability and growing out of those things, people don't see your growth. Or on the, on the mentally ill side, they feel like they're not worthy enough for somebody to see their growth. So that's why I like to ask that question as well. To know that things are not holding people back, or know that you're worthy enough to be loved, to find someone that does love you, regardless of who you are and what things have happened in your life as well.
Absolutely. I echo that. Yep. Yep. It hasn't really hindered me in my life as far as that's concerned. I've had some great relationships, like I said. Continue to have great relationships. Unfortunately, things didn't work out to marriage, but hey, I'm still open to it, and who knows what will happen in the future.
Yeah, it's cerebral palsy inherited? Did you ever have a family member that had it, or do you have family members that have a mental illness or disability?
Cerebral palsy is not genetic because it happens
Okay.
at birth. It's lack of oxygen to the brain, so it's not
Yes.
a genetic thing. But yeah, I mean, I've had people in the family with alcoholism and such.
Okay.
My great uncle, he had I didn't know him, but he suffered from alcoholism. So and it probably dealt with mental illness because probably at the time there wasn't the right help for him to seek. So so his medication was alcohol, and maybe today, if he was alive today, maybe it might have been a different story. Because what I love about the newer generations, and what you're doing, Carrie, is great. Putting notice on people with mental illness, because a lot of people deal with it in some way. Everybody deals with mental illness. Every single person on this earth does. And I love the fact that you have this podcast that's talking about it and taking away the stigma of mental illness, because it's part of life, and I want people to know that, and you do a great job of this, Carrie. You're not alone. If you have these thoughts in your head, there's other people who have these thoughts in their head as well. And the worst thing you could do is suffer in silence. Seek help, seek a coach, seek a therapist, seek a friend, seek family. Don't suffer in silence. Please reach out. Being vulnerable and reaching out is a strength, not a weakness.
Yes, totally agree. And it's just about raising that awareness, so I do ask different types of things. I do talk to different kinds of people because, like I said, you're reiterating what Paul said, and he things, and somebody's getting something from us talking today, somebody's getting something from previous episodes I get, but you always get your experiences from other people and hear about, hey, that's some of the things I'm going through, or see the significance and similarities in a lot of our lives that you're not the only person that has gone through these things. You're not the only one that has gotten over it. It's still some people that are dealing with those today. So it's just a lot of things that a lot of questions that go unanswered, and I try to answer.
You do a good job of it.
Get down to some of the things that a lot of people are thinking, a lot of, and advocating for this population, because there's a lot of things that go in people's, thoughts that go on in people's minds every day about how they deal with a lot of different things as well. So, and then I want to share with you guys, previously when me and Paul were talking, I was telling him about one of my clients a couple of years ago, a young boy. He was preteen. He's about 11 years old. He's probably about 13 now. And he also has cerebral palsy. And I would see this little boy and I'm like, oh, like we had a great relationship. And I'm like, this is one of my favorite clients. He was one of my youngest ones. And I didn't think anything was wrong with him. I didn't even really, I knew his diagnosis. So I'm like, these charts, these files have to be wrong. Like, he was just active. He did everything that he wanted to do. And he, like Paul said, he had a great mom. His grandmother adopted him. And she took him under her wing ever since he was a baby. And she said, oh, I'll push him to go, and his nickname is Quay. I can't use his real name. But she's like, I push Quay to do everything that he can do. He was in karate, he was in football, he was in basketball, any sport that he wanted to play, any activity that he wanted to do. She made sure that he did it, and he was one of the best of his, even with his mobility, he was one of the best on the team, one of the best in the class. So, like we're saying, and like we're promoting, always have self love and always have determination and have someone in your corner that supports you no matter what. I think that's just the the greatest thing about it all is always just having people that are there for you, no matter what's going on. And even when times are good, even when times are bad, even when you feel, happy, sad, any emotions that you feel, you have someone that can, be in your corner, and you push yourself and feel and stay motivated. And like I said, I need to actually call that family now.
Yeah.
I do. My clients feel they're close to my heart, even when I leave certain agencies. But it was just amazing to see. And I was, like I said, I would sit in these meetings, and it would move me because they're like, oh, he's doing this, he doing that. He had a few little learning disabilities as well, but I think even his principal sometimes didn't even know his diagnosis or even remember. He's like, no, nothing's wrong with Quay, and I'm like, well, on paper, he's diagnosed with this, And they talk, like, in these meetings also, they talk about the positives. Like we're saying, don't just focus on negative things. But we also talked about, different accommodations for him and ensuring that he still continues to be that star student. So, yeah, shouts out to that family. But
That's
yes,
tremendous.
Paul, um, just moving forward here. So, what are some things that you feel like were the most helpful for you, and what was not so helpful?
As far as what?
When dealing with cerebral palsy,
Okay.
or the help that you've gotten, or different activities that you have tried.
Well, I think the main thing about somebody having cerebral palsy or anything, any type of physical disability, the one thing that the individual who has this disability needs to have, and the people that are helping the person out, the number one thing is patience. You got to be patient. You got to be patient with yourself, and the people that are helping you. They got to be patient with you, because
Yes.
unfortunately, there's going to be activities that you're going to be able to do, no question.
Yeah.
But it may take you a little bit longer to learn them or to do them. And you might have to do it in an alternative way. You might not be able to do it the traditional way. You might have to invent a way to do whatever that activity is. And I think that's so important that you give yourself that grace and that patience that, hey, you know what? I'm going to be able to do it. It's just going to take me a little bit longer, but you know what? I'll figure it out. And the people around you need to understand that it is going to take that person a little bit longer to do it, and to have the patience and the motivation to motivate that person to go after whatever that task is. And I think that is huge. So the negative, I guess, would be is self-doubt talk from yourself, because we say things to ourselves that a lot of times we wouldn't even say to our worst enemies, but we say to ourselves on a daily basis. So why is that okay? It's not okay. It's not okay to say that to yourselves, because it's not true. And the thing is, we got to be aware of these thoughts that we're telling ourselves. And once we're aware of these thoughts that we're telling ourselves, then we can change those thoughts, going, you know what? I'm not this. I'm not that. I am actually this. I'm actually that. I'm a wonderful person. I'm wonderful. And once you do that, it goes back to that self-love. Once you have that self-love and you have that mindset, then you can tackle any goal that you want to go after.
Yes, totally agree, and well put. So just moving into life coaching, what are some of the things that your clients have struggled with, that you have helped them through, or how does your life coaching look for a client?
Well, it depends on each person. It's crazy. I got all different types of people, and they come to me for various different reasons. I got clients who have physical disabilities, and I help them out in a different way than I would help out somebody. I got people that have families that are just overwhelmed with their job and juggling their family and feeling guilty that they're spending more time with their job than the family and the juggle, and they don't know how to get it all together and they're overwhelmed. So I got clients like that. I got stay-at-home moms that are just trying to have purpose other than being that great mom. But they want a purpose for themselves. So I got all kinds of different people that come to me for different things. So it's just on to whatever they need. But the main thing, the main thing that they all share is it's mindset. It's all about that limited belief and training the mind that you can do whatever you want to do if you believe you can achieve. And that's the main message that I have for my clients. I had a client the other day. I'm not going to disclose what we talked about, but she was in a bad state. I could tell in her voice, and she was telling me the story that was going on in her life since the last time we had a call, and everything was relatively negative. And I let her get it out because I think it's important when people are in that state that they're able to vent, because I think venting helps a lot, and having somebody listen to you, actively listen to you. And that's what I do a lot of, actively listening and let people just get it all out. And I went back through her story and I was pointing out all the positive things that she was missing, because what was going on, she had tunnel vision, and she was only focusing on all the bad. She wasn't focusing on any of the good that was going on throughout that story. And I was able to point some of that stuff out to her. So at the end of the call, I'm not saying that she was doing backflips, but you could tell in her voice that she was much better from the end of the call, from the beginning of the call. And for me, that's a win. And that's the crux of my coaching is opening up that mindset. You know what? Because I have clients that say you're that injection of positivity, and I love when we have our calls, because after I'm done with my calls, I feel like I can take on the world, and that makes me feel so good when they say that kind of stuff to me.
That's great, Paul. And just tell my listeners where they can find your services at as well, and about your podcast.
I appreciate you asking that question. So the easiest way to get in touch with me is through my website. It's called a calltoaction.coach. And on my website, I developed a free guide on how you're able to rewrite your story. It's free. Just go on my website. You can get it for free. Go for it. And then I also, and Carrie, I'd love for you to be on this too. I have a Facebook group called Rewrite Your Story, and it's a support group. We all get together and we lift each other up. The people tell us their wins. People tell us what's going wrong, and we lift them up. And there's no judgment in this group. It's all positive, and it's all helping each other out. I love it because people are so vulnerable, and they tell their stories, and they're helping so and supporting others. It's a great community. It's called Rewrite Your Story. It's on Facebook. It's a great group. I would love for you to be on there because you would add so much value to the group with your expertise. You'd be awesome.
And I will join. And I'll have that. I have the links to those as well that I will put in the comments for you guys. Well, on the commentary for this podcast for tonight episode. And you guys sign up and subscribe to Paul's group and his podcast as well, and his life coaching. I feel like it's truly amazing to have a lot of, not only do we have people that are here to support you guys, but we're also here because we like to support people and help people, and we're passionate about helping as well. I always like to share that I've interviewed a lot of life coaches, and I was kind of like, Paul, what's a life coach? What's this? But it has now expanded my horizon, and I'm very knowledgeable about, like he said, the mindset and being mindful of things that we're not necessarily knowing that we're doing. But a lot of times you're speaking more negative things than being positive. So it's always just about having self-care and working on some of those, good attributes and good characteristics in your life to be able to show the world those things and gravitate towards positive people and positive action as well. So Paul, just wrapping up here, and it was great to have you on as well and coping with me in my new environment. But what are some last remarks, encouraging remarks from my listeners?
I want to leave your audience with this quote. I think I said it earlier, but I want to say it again because it's very, very important. If you believe, you can achieve. There's nothing you can't do if you believe it in your mind.
Yes, and that's great because a lot of times when you don't believe things, you can't necessarily do your best at it.
Nope, not at all.
Yes, totally agree. And like I said, thank you for supporting Talk is Cheap, and thanks for coming on tonight. And yes, you guys subscribe. And I will be joining those groups as well. So hopefully I'll see some of you guys and connect with you as well, Paul. And thank you for coming on Talk is Cheap.
Carrie, I loved it. It was a great time. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I've already subscribed.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes, everyone, please subscribe to Mr. Paul's his groups, and everything that he said is totally correct about just knowing that you don't have limitations in your life. You may be physically limited. You may have a mental illness. You may have things that are holding you back in your life, but know that that doesn't keep you away from your strength or have the strength to keep you away from certain things that you want to do in your life. Know that it's, the hills are only up from here. And it goes as far as the sun, as the sunrise, as you can see. But truthfully, set those goals and start marking some of those goals. If I even have to do it for myself, have a checklist of things that I want to complete and within that day, completing within that week or in that month or in that year. And if it's something that I haven't done or haven't completed within that time, I just move it down to the next goal time and set a deadline of some of these things that I would like to complete in my life as well. So yes. And it was great having Paul on tonight. As I said, shout out to Callie, and you guys will have the information within the comments and the commentary as well. And thank you guys for tuning in to Talk is Cheap. I'm your host, Miss Carrie Baby, saying good night. I'm out. And also tune in next week. This was still, I am still doing season 2. And I do have some guests that will complete season 2 with me as well. So you guys just look forward to the, wrapping up season 2 in the next 4 or 5 weeks. And then we'll go on to the next. So thank you guys for staying in there. Talk is cheap, non cuts, non censored, and I'm out.